Thinking about GLP-1s to help with weight loss? Go micro with Noom. You start off with a small dose of medication, then gradually increase as your body reacts. The Noom GLP-1 microdose program starts at $79 and is delivered to your door in 7 days. Start your microdose GLP-1 journey today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com. Noom. Micro changes, big results. Initial 3-week subscription and 4 weeks of medication from $79 plus tax, and $179 per month plus tax for 7-week subscription thereafter. Final pricing depends on program selection.
Hey there, and welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast. We're fueled by the incredible clients who inspire us every day, allowing us to elevate their health and fitness journeys. On this show, you'll gain valuable insights from top professionals, hear inspiring transformation stories, and discover the knowledge and motivation to create your own best life. Let's dive in. As someone who has continuously used therapy as a way to heal and elevate my personal performance, I know wholeheartedly that you cannot always read the label when you're in the jar. And that's why it's so helpful to have a professional in your corner to talk to. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp to provide our listeners with the opportunity to work with a licensed therapist from the comfort of your own home. Receive 10% off your first month when you sign up by going to betterhelp.com/TFL. That's betterhelp.com/T as in think, F as in fitness, L as in life. And remember, you're not alone. There are people out there who can help.
Oh, welcome back to the Think Fitness Life podcast. Today, we're going to dive into the world of creatine, a supplement that's been around for years and years and years that most people have a big misunderstanding of what it actually does. We're going to dive into why you should be on creatine and why more people are on creatine nowadays, and why you should be on creatine and the benefits of getting on creatine. This is not just a supplement for athletes anymore. This supplement is changing the game of optimizing your overall health. And I have many clients and even family members that are taking it, that are on the creatine game every single day. Without further ado, let's dive into. First off, let's dive into what is creatine, because I think people hear it and they think, oh, this is something bad for the system, or they've heard, oh, creatine taxes the kidneys, which research has shown that it doesn't, but people will hold on to it from one bad research study and they're not diving into the new ones. But that being said, creatine, it's not a steroid, it's not synthetic, it is a formed molecule from reactions involving amino acids, arginine, glycine, methionine, in the kidneys and livers. And that's it. We get it from meat. We get it from a dietary supplement. Our body produces its own. What really we're taking is we're taking some byproducts of what we eat from meat. We're taking those amino acids and we can create creatine, which then allows our body to have energy. What creatine does is we have creatine in our body. It's in our muscle cells. When we go to do work, we go to exert ourselves, or we're breathing and blinking and living throughout the day, our body needs energy. We break down energy. We break down the ATP in the body while we're working out, we split the bonds and we create ADP, which we lose a phosphate bond. If we have creatine in the body, we then can get the ADP to get back to ATP, because that creatine, the phosphocreatine, is going to lend a phosphate back to the ADP to replenish the ATP faster, thus being able to have more energy, to produce more reps, to have more endurance for what we're doing. When I say endurance, we're not saying that you are going to take creatine and you're going to have the ability to run large amounts of time. No, the ability to resynthesize ATP really quick in the body is the benefit of what creatine does. That's the scientific part. It's not a steroid. I think people get really miscued thinking that creatine is a steroid because they hear it and they're, oh my gosh, what is it? I don't know what it is. It must be a steroid, because there are studies showing that it can help increase muscle strength and muscle mass and all that. But it's really not. It's just amino acids put together, and it is not a synthetic version of testosterone or androgenic hormone at all. There's that big misconception because creatine is converted to phosphocreatine, and it's regulated by enzymes in the muscle used to create intracellular ATP. That's it. The brain uses this. The heart uses this. All muscles and organs in the body use creatine. This is why it can be such a powerful supplement to take. And one supplement that's the most researched supplement out there. Most people think, oh, okay, protein shakes are probably the most recommended or most researched supplement out there. False. When I tell people what the number one supplement I would recommend is creatine first, because if you're doing the things, it can really help you out. There's also been some recent studies that have claimed that creatine doesn't increase muscle mass or muscle strength on its own. Yeah, obviously, because you need to put the work in to get the benefit. Many people that are thinking, oh, I can take creatine and I'm going to just increase muscle mass or increase strength, that's where they're missing the boat, because they're treating it as a synthetic or an anabolic steroid, which it's not. You need to understand that it is giving you the ability to create more energy and to replenish energy stores quicker. You can get an adaptation from your training. Just like anything else, you have to do training. You have to perform training to get an adaptation. When I read a recent study that says creatine isn't as effective for building muscle, but it's complicated, to me, it's why even do the study? What's the point? Because we know what creatine does. We know the mechanisms that it's going to work for. And the research also showed that they took two groups. One had creatine, one didn't. They still gained similar amounts of muscle mass. Creatine group just gained it a little bit quicker than the control group, but the gains eventually matched those of the other control group over time. I look at studies this, and I always get a little leery, because what are people doing outside of just a scenario? Because dietary choices really drive adaptations. And if you're looking at studies that are trying to put muscle mass on, you're trying to increase that, there's a lot of factors that go into putting on muscle mass. And it's very important. If you're not hitting the adequate amounts of nutrients, you can get some skewed results. It's still great that they gave people creatine, saw that they averaged and gained some muscle mass on a 12-week resistance training program. But I would just know a little bit more, because if you're claiming that's not as effective, but then it gets complicated, and then you recommend that maybe people still take the supplement, what's the point of doing the study in my case? And here's where a lot of people don't understand the worlds of supplements. It's really the dose. It's dependent on the dosage. The biggest thing with that is taking the dose per body weight. Someone, me, who 220 pounds, you're going to need 10 grams or more. Some research is going a little bit more per day of creatine. If you're 185 to 200, maybe 50 pounds, you're going to need 10 grams a day, because it's dependent on your muscle mass. If you're under 185 pounds, 3 to 5 grams will suffice, but that doesn't mean that you can't go into higher dosages. What they did in the past, late 80s, early 90s, is in most research, if you look at creatine bottles, or for especially old school, they'll recommend a loading phase where you take 20 grams for a set amount of days to super saturate your body. and then you go on a maintenance phase, in which they've shown that if you super saturate your body, you are going to pull in water into the cells. That's a mechanism of how you're going to help the cellular function of phosphocreatine help ATP. And people will claim, oh, I'm getting bloated from the creatine. Sure, that could be a possibility. I've taken creatine for 15 years and I've never really had that bloated sensation. I've also never really done a hard loading phase. The other thing with creatine is if you do high loads, 20 grams, 15, 20 grams, that's a lot on your stomach. Expect there to be some GI distress if you're going to go higher loads. I mean, back in the day, when we were in high school, we had the supplement Super Pump 250. Thing was loaded with creatine, but it got the nickname Super Dumb because there was so much in there that it overloaded the GI and you're going to expel it out. My recommendation for people coming onto the scene taking creatine, you don't need to go into this loading phase. If you're an athlete or a bodybuilder looking for adaptations off the bat and really quick, you might play around with a loading phase, build up your tolerance to it. I don't know if I'd go slam 20 grams of creatine a day, especially not all at once, because that's a lot for your GI system. And it might say, hey, we don't need all this in here. Let's call the fire extinguisher. Let's call the fire hydrant and let's flush this thing out and where it goes from there. My point, getting back to it, it's really dependent on the dose. If you are someone who needs a little more of dose, you're probably going to take 3 to 5 grams twice a day. If you're on the lower side, if you're taking 3 grams per serving, you might take it 3 times a day. I break it up. I do 5 grams after I work out in the morning, and then I do 5 grams later on in the day. One of the biggest things people ask, oh, when to take it? Is it a timing thing? The timing really doesn't matter per se because you're still getting it in. But ideally, if you are working out and exercising, you want to replenish those creatine stores ASAP. Taking it intra-workout or post-workout really helps that recovery of, okay, I am pulling this into my cell and I'm getting it. And that's where a loading phase, if you need super saturation, it will get sourced really quick post-workout because you're in a super absorbed state. Also, the benefit of it post-workout, post-training, is creatine. In research, the creatine group had improved carbohydrate absorption when taken post-workout. It enhances the GLUT4 activation, which equals more growth and more repair. If you're someone who's doing extreme workouts and hard workouts and you're looking to recover really quick, put muscle mass on, or allow tissues to recover and pull in glycogen, creatine post-workout should be the first thing that you're probably grabbing post-workout. Yes, I'm going to say it before protein. Most people know that I'm very much of a protein-centered thinking, protein-centric thinking. But when it comes to creatine, boom, bang for buck there. And if you do it in your protein shake, if you're a person that does a post-workout protein shake, throw the creatine in there, get the protein shake in, and then obviously get some good source of carbohydrates in to help that growth and repair immediately start to happen off the bat. Because post-workout is the most, your body's just in this super absorptive state where it's going to take in all the nutrients that it needs because you just put a boatload of stress on it from the workout. We need to repair it. We'll get into when you take it in, you have obviously the muscle and strength performance aspect of it. And that's a big thing where that might deter people and has in the past is because most people, especially women, they're not going to look at creatine and be, oh, I need to take creatine for muscle and performance. It was very much an athlete, a bodybuilding centered supplement, but that it is getting more well known and more research. And we got to thank social media to this. You are getting to see more benefits from creatine than ever. And I think this is where people really need to tune in and dial into what the news are saying, because the big news media outlets are talking about creatine and why people should be on it. And I love getting clients in my family sending me this stuff and asking me what it is and why they should be on it. Number one, why they should be on it. Here's my number one reason. Besides muscle growth, besides that, I mean, you have one of the best things in our world, or we have one of the best things in the world. We have a super powered brain. And what creatine does is it can help brain health. And it's been shown to connect mood, regulation, motivation, and it helps enhance frontal cortical circuits that control all that. We're talking neurophysiology. We're talking how creatine can help enhance the brain. It's this fuel source that's used by the brain. Every single mitochondria in our cell, in our body, in our cells, will use ATP. And if we can give the mitochondria more fuel, adding more phosphate to that, we can produce more ATP. Creatine does that. The ability to fuel the brain and to help the brain. Why would we not want to take it? That's the biggest thing that I have with creatine. It is a nootropic. It is going to help increase cognitive function. It influences communication of cortical neurons. It influences communication of cortical neurons. We're talking cortical patterning and cortical function that it can help. I would recommend this to almost to anyone, especially when we're talking about mitochondrial health, because a lot of times that's where many diseases start. They start when our powerhouses, our mitochondria, stop producing and get damaged from electrons, free radicals in the body. If we can have a better protection system and we can fuel the mitochondria better, that's a win-win. And on top of it, we exercise, we create antioxidant pathways, then we enhance those pathways by giving fuel from creatine. We are creating a better internal situation for optimal brain health. Hands down, number one. That's the biggest thing that will tell people why to do it. What else it does in the brain is it protects the brain from heat stroke, heat resistance. So if we're one of these athletes that are playing out, it's fall, it's summer camp for a lot of athletes, it's hot weather. That is going to play a big factor in heat stroke, because in creatine, as we said earlier, in mass dose, you're going to get cellular hydrohypertrophy, intracellular tension in the tissue. There's more water in the tissue to allow that ATP to be split more, to produce more energy. And then when it replenishes that energy, you have the ability to perform what you're doing a little bit longer. And if the stores are greater, you push off that fatigue a little bit more. It's one of these things where it's cyclical. It's cycling through in your body and you're helping the stores of energy get replenished. That's all it is doing. It is not a crazy supplement that you take and all of a sudden you're putting muscle mass on, or you're increasing certain enzymes. It just has a simple role in our body. The other thing that it gets into is it can increase formation of osteoblast. We're talking bone formation. Yes, we've talked muscle and strength from that side. You're putting metabolic tissue on, but we can start to influence bone mineral density on top of memory and cognition function. It's becoming a greater and greater thing to have is creatine available to be able to use. You're not going to just take this supplement and not work out and not help the body, because this whole world of health and in making ourselves better, there's not one simple answer or one simple thing you can do. There's many supplements that help. There's many foods that help. There's many exercise that help. We have to put together a fully regimented program. Good sleep, good nutrition, good exercise, supporting supplements to help all this happen. You're not going to just take creatine and think, okay, bone mineral density is going to go up. No, we need to take creatine, get good sleep, have good nutrition, and exercise and load the body in the manner to allow the synthesis of these new cells, of muscle cells, of bone mineral cells, osteoblasts, to be able to be laid down in foundation to build the system better and better. It's an avenue. Most men are going to jump on this. They're going to talk about, oh, okay, I can get muscle performance, I can get strength. A lot of my athletes that are especially male, a lot of my athletes are on it. I recommend it to them. It is obviously beneficial if you're going into a season, just you're taking a new supplement. Be cautious, be aware of what that supplement's going to do. On the flip side, when we talked about females, because I think this is one where females hear about creatine and they just think it's this muscle magazine bodybuilder supplement. But it is coming out that women produce 20 to 30% less creatine naturally than men. And creatine supplementation in women can help regulate hormones, improve mood, relieve depression, and boost cognitive function. Huge. Absolutely huge. What this comes down to is women naturally, they have less muscle mass than men. They're going to produce less creatine. They might not get as much benefit as from creatine as we do because they don't produce as much. And then there's some studies that have women typically lower in creatine stores may have up to 80% less. That's huge. That's a big difference. You would say 20, we can say that women produce 20 to 30% less creatine, but to say they have up to 80% less creatine stores, that's a lot. This is something I recommend to all my athletes. I said before, male, female, it does not matter. It is one of these things where, along with a good strength training program and dietary intake, you're going to get creatine from a lot of you're going to get creatines from red meat. That's for especially for females, that's just a disadvantage. That's just basic physiology. That's just how their bodies are built. They have less muscle mass than we do, and their dietaries might not be as favorable as getting creatine from food as men. The creatine from food thing, I don't want to sell people short here and they're going to walk away and think, oh, I can eat certain foods and get creatine. Creatine's found in red meat and it's found in fish. But to get 5 grams of creatine, you're going to have to eat 4 to 7 pounds of red meat a day. And I don't even do that. And that's absurd to get that much creatine in. Ideally, the best way to do it is through supplementation. Creatine monohydrate is the most effective and the cheapest way to get it in. There's other creatines on the market that'll claim, oh, it's better, it's going to get in faster, but creatine monohydrate is the most studied one on the market. And then we look back at that study about women hormone control, because we're upregulating ATP, different energy systems, mitochondria. Depression is the interesting one. One study showed that there was 42% more prevalence of depression in those who take no creatine or took less creatine than the group that took creatine. And this gets back to the ability of creatine to enhance the frontal cortical circuits that connect to mood regulation and motivation. If you can enhance that, you can change. I'm not saying you're going to be completely depressed, but you can start changing how your moods are, because you're going to let the brain function differently in cortical functions, along with getting on a good workout program, workout regimen, starting to control that. We can start to help the body heal. If someone is in state of depression or depressed, they can start to help make themselves better and get to habits that are going to change them from depression into others. I'm not saying that creatine is going to do that alone. It's going to aid and help that. That's huge. And when the study says that, I always make sure that people just don't think that, oh, it's going to relieve depression if I take 10 grams. Maybe some people have taken it. They've taken 5 to 10 grams and they feel better post-workout. Maybe they've taken it not a workout and they feel better. That's awesome. And if that can happen, that is amazing. This goes not alone for just women, men too. 20 to 30% less creatine stores because of less muscle mass. Women, that is going to be one big thing that to take in a factor of just are the differences between men and women from a muscle mass standpoint. That doesn't mean that females can't do it, especially when it comes to what kind of activity you are looking at. For the most part, creatine has been shown quick anaerobic work. This is due to the ability of the phosphocreatine system really being 0 to 10 seconds of work. It's rapid fire. It's going to help enhance performance during high intensity training sessions, sprints or intervals. The debate on endurance running is still up in the air. Creatine is going to be mainly thought of as a high intensity sprint, repeated effort supplement. It works the phosphocreatine system, the creatine phosphate system, which is 0 to 10 seconds of work. You might get a little bit more than 10 seconds. You're running through a lot of ATP really quick to produce high amounts of energy. It can still work with endurance athletes. There's always this debate on, does it work? Does it not? You get people on the endurance side, they'll say, oh, well, it can cause water retention. It can cause GI issues, which they're not wrong, but we'll dive into that of why it can kind of be misleading. The other side will say it can help endurance athletes improve recovery, help glycogen stores. We went over earlier, creatine improves carbohydrate absorption. If you're doing long distance and you're a marathoner, why would you not want to improve carbohydrate absorption post-run to help glycogen stores? This is one where I always find it interesting because endurance athletes are very aware of what they're putting in their body for fuel, and they tend to be a little bit on the lesser sides of the supplement world. They're going to take supplements more geared towards endurance. They're going to take electrolytes. They're going to take their sodium, potassium. They're going to take their goos and all that stuff, but they don't kind of dive into the world of your anaerobic athlete, your sprint athlete, your soccer players, your basketball, your baseball. There's a little bit to be taken away from both. You can take away from what those athletes are doing using supplements and creatine, and then you can take away what the endurance athletes are doing. It's a little bit of both, but I would highly recommend any endurance athlete be on a creatine monohydrate supplementation program after they talk about electrolyte balance. As we said earlier, high amounts of creatine can cause gastrointestinal distress. I would not take creatine before a run. I would not go out and do 5 to 10 grams and then try to go run 10 miles. You're probably going to have some GI issues if you take that much, because anytime we put in a supplement in the body in a dose that's greater, sometimes the stomach intestines, they're not going to. as much for water retention, I'm really a non-believer. If you take a lower 3 to 5 gram dose, you're not going to notice the water retention, especially as an endurance athlete. And anyways, you've been drinking enough electrolytes and water to help the sodium pump get creatine into the cells that you're not going to really notice a couple extra molecules of water being stored in your cells. It's going to be unimpactful, but where it's important is in that recovery. My wife's a marathon runner. We have her on 5 grams of creatine throughout her marathon training cycles, throughout her strength training cycles. That is all very, very important. And we've even seen when we run out of creatine or she doesn't take it, she notices a difference in recovery. And that, I think that's the biggest thing. Getting benefits from recovery and noticing the difference is key, because our goal through the training cycle for her is keeping her strong through strength training. We get 2 30-minute strength trainings a week with her. She does all her running, programs that all out. Our goal is to keep her recovered, to keep her healthy, and to keep her not into overuse injuries. And that is all from nutrition and supplementation to pull the adequate nutrients into the cell to be able to recover. And if you're not doing that, then you're at a risk for overuse injuries. You're at a risk for burning the system out because you're not taking the proper steps or the proper measures to put what actually your body needs to recover back in. In the world of sports and the world of training, becomes a lot more clear when you start to actually talk about what nutrients you're taking in. And it's not just, oh, I got to train and then I can eat whatever I want and I expect adaptations. No, you need to train, you need to eat accordingly, and then you need to see those adaptations and you change it and modify it by the adaptations you're seeing. For the adult population, this is huge. A lot of adults watch the news. My parents watch the news. My dad reached out and he goes, "What do you think about creatine?" Oh, my doctor talked to me about it. And his doctor wasn't really for it at first. And it's one where I love to kind of push back. I was, okay, why was the doctor not for it? Well, it's this research shows kidney function and people of athletes have had heat strokes and died and dropped and I wrote back and I said, I've been taking creatine for the past 15 years or maybe even longer. I take a 5 gram a day dose. Maybe some days I go a little bit heavier. I'm going a little bit more. I'm up to 10 grams and no adverse side effect. The research says things completely different than what the research said maybe at this time 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It's different research. One study should not skew what people think. And I always appreciate doctors giving a little pushback before people go on supplements, but that it's starting to really become talked about all over social media, Instagram and TikTok, and people, my parents' age or older, they're starting to really see this and hone in on this supplement world of how they can improve their overall health. And purely from the adult side of things, we said earlier, it is going to be for cognitive function and ATP cellular function. You keep those mitochondria healthy, you have a great chance at fighting off disease. You have a great chance at fighting off illness. You have the structure to do it. And why wouldn't you take advantage of mixing it? All creatine is, I tell my dad asks, okay, how do I take it? How do I get it? Okay, you get it. You can get creatine. It's a white flavorless powder, creatine monohydrate. You mix it with a protein shake. You can mix it with coffee. I like to mix it with coffee. Warm liquids are the best to mix it within because it dissolves. If you mix it in cold, it kind of can settle at the bottom. You might have to add some more fluids at the end to drink it down. It kind of gets a little gritty, but it's not the end of the world. It's a mindset when you get to that point because you know you're getting the benefits of creatine in. Or you can go, what my wife does is creatine gummies. There's many companies that offer creatine gummies that are simple. It's a chewable, it's a simple chewable gummy. You take 3 to 5, you chew it, and you're on with your day. The best supplement I always think about for a person is how the person can intake that supplement readily and easily, and it's not going to impact them. When my wife's done training, she's not one that's going to make a protein shake and put all these powders in, collagen powder, all this collagen powder, creatine, maybe some vitamins in a shake and drink it. She has it's not as palatable. That's okay. What's the simplest way for her to get creatine in? Okay, take these gummies before she heads out to work or before she gets breakfast. On the flip side, I'm one that likes a shake. Take a shake. I'm going to pour stuff in that I'm going to have it during the day, or the vesicle I use is coffee in the morning. I use my coffee to mix creatine, collagen, some powdered mushrooms from nootropics. That's my vesicle to get it in. And people always ask me, oh, you must really, coffee is your thing. No, I just use that as a tool to get it in. I enjoy it, but I use it as a tool to get my supplements in. Whatever makes it easier for you and the best for you, go that route. Get the creatine in. If you just take in more than your body might need, you're going to pee it out. We pee it out creatine anyways. When we exercise and we run, we lift weights, we break down the phosphocreatine, and we're going to excrete that as a byproduct and get it out of the body. The one thing that we need to be aware of is creatine already mixed in drinks. Research has shown that if it's lasted over 24 hours in a liquid, the creatine gets degraded into creatinine. We need to be careful of creatine that's already in fluid, because creatine can break down into creatinine, especially when dissolved in a liquid, as it's less stable in a liquid environment. These are your drinks that are going to be found at gas stations. There's some that I won't mention the name. There's many products that are in a can that are marketed as sports supplements, but they've been sitting on shelves in gas stations and supermarkets. We don't know how long they've been sitting in the shelf. A good rule is dissolve the creatine in water, drink it fast. 24 hours. If it's sitting more than 24 hours in a liquid, it's probably going to start to break down. When we get that breakdown into creatinine, the body is going to excrete that. That's where it can put a little bit more stress on the kidneys, because you're trying to excrete that and get rid of it, because it's not creatine anymore and your body's not using it. If you're one of those people that are going into gas stations or buying cans that has creatine inside and it's already a liquid, you're really kind of wasting your money. I do see a lot in when people talk in market, oh, I got creatine in this liquid already. I don't tell them to burst their bubble, but in the back of my head, I'm already thinking maybe not the best, because you're misleading people. Yes, it's in liquid, and yes, it's creatine, but you missed reading the research on how it breaks down in a liquid environment over time. To wrap up today's episode, what we talked about, creatine sources, how it's going to impact bone health, how it's going to impact muscle and performance, how it's going to help you recover further, how it's going to help you increase communication of cortical neurons, mood regulation, cognition, memory, all these neurofunctions. If that alone doesn't sell creatine, I don't know what will. And go back and re-listen to some of it. If I can't think of a supplement that has more benefits and packs a punch than creatine does. Obviously, you need to drink water with creatine, because creatine will pull water into cells to help swell and function. We have often heard stories, oh, people are on creatine and they get cramps. Yes, be smart. Anytime you take a supplement, you need to be hydrating, because you need to know the function of pulling a supplement into cells. And most of the time, we are a liquid human being. We are going to use H2O to shuttle things across gradients, and our cells are suspended in liquid. We're going to need H2O. If you are on creatine, make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're getting adequate amounts of sodium too, because there's a sodium pump that helps pump that and get creatine into the cells. And then obviously just sodium or electrolyte balance for overall health, overall function. That wraps us up today on creatine. Coming up, we dove into a little bit of talking with running and strength, endurance training and strength training. We're going to dive into the realm of how strength training helps endurance athletes out, and then how to put a strength training program together for a marathon training cycle.
Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie here from Think Fitness Life. Our entire careers have been dedicated to fitness, particularly how the mind helps the body. We've been around gyms and nutrition strategies for 25 plus years collectively, and nothing harms or helps better than your own mind, untrained or trained. Pushing beyond your limits, overcoming whatever's thrown your way, and making the decision to show up day in and day out as a lifestyle takes more soul than sand. And what I mean by that is when you can get your mindset and heart leading you consistently in the direction of your goals and dreams, well, it's just a matter of time before you have the performance, physique, or quality of life you're yearning for. See, your thoughts will stem from your beliefs, which will then lead you to action, which develop into your behavior and ultimately lead you to results. It's really that simple. Our process takes time and it takes open communication. It's amazing what pops up along the fitness journey to betterment, and we can be there every step of the way. To learn more or apply for coaching, visit www.thinkfitnesslife.com. Start recreating your life today.